I think Miami sometimes has pushed itself into silos. More recently, we've been working harder at breaking down those silos and working together. And I think that's somewhere where we can lead as an example of this is how we can all live together when we have different goals and different backgrounds, and how can we learn to, talk to each other and move forward.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen today. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host Tyler Kelly. And today we are at Venture Cafe Miami. So if you're not familiar, Venture Cafe is the largest gathering of entrepreneurs, innovators, creators anywhere in the world. So today I'm very excited to have Olga Granda with us. Olga, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Exciting day. So Olga is a multi-disciplinary cultural entrepreneur passionate about her native Miami. She's the executive director of Miami New Drama, a producing and presenting organization committed to artistic excellence and groundbreaking work unique to this diverse and extraordinary city with the vision of theater as a possible form of social engagement. And that's in residence at the Colony Theater on Lincoln Road.
Yep, that's it.
Welcome. So tell me
Thank
all
you.
about Miami New Drama. Let's start there.
So Miami New Drama is a theater company to reduce the noise, and it's a theater company that focuses on new work primarily that truly stands by four pillars. One is that we don't believe that art changes lives. We believe great art changes lives. So to us, that's a level of artistic excellence that has to be, top, the best in the world, really. Second thing is that we're very locally relevant. So we're telling stories that the people that are coming to see these plays locally can either relate to, they're either seeing themselves on the stage, or sometimes are historically relevant to things that happen in Miami specifically, but then also that are nationally relevant, so that are engaging in the conversation. So that could be a political issue, a social issue, what are people talking about? And we're making sure that those issues are on the stage. And then the last one is that we reflect our community so that we look like what the audience looks like. So that means multicultural, diverse. Lots of our shows have multiple languages in them. So all of that goes into the planning of our seasons. And we produce 4 to 5 plays a year at the Colony Theater on Lincoln Road.
Wow.
Yeah. So give me an example of what would be a relevant local topic that you would cover, or how that works for you.
Right. So this season, our first play was called One Night in Miami. It's about a historic night, which is February 25th, 1964, which is the night that Cassius Clay won the fight over Sonny Liston at the Miami Beach Convention Center. Because he was black, he could not sleep on Miami Beach. So he celebrated at the Hampton House, which is at the time was kind of the place that was frequently called the Harlem of the South area. All of the most important black musicians who came to Miami at the time and performed at places like the Fontainebleau would then go stay there and would perform for their friends there. So he celebrated there with Sam Cooke, who at the time was, of course, already an icon and a superstar, Malcolm X, doesn't need an introduction, and Jim Brown, who was an NFL star at the time, later on became an actor and is still considered one of the greatest athletes that we've ever had. So celebrated with the four of them. And, there were a lot of important conversations that happened that night. The next day, Muhammad Ali announced, Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali. The next week, Malcolm X leaves the Nation of Islam. By the end of the year, both Sam Cooke and Malcolm X are dead. It's a very pivotal moment. Miami was very relevant in the civil rights movement at that time. In fact, Martin Luther King stayed at the Hampton House as well and worked on his I Have a Dream speech. And this is a story that in Miami, nobody knows. The director of the play is a Miamian, grew up in Richmond Heights, which is the same area where Andrew Gillum, who was just our first, African-American gubernatorial candidate, grew up, not knowing this story. So many people know the stories of Malcolm X, of Jim Brown, of Muhammad Ali, but not that, this night happened in Miami. And so we felt that it was really important to tell this story here and shed light on it. And so, of course, it's a story that's locally relevant, but also nationally relevant, right? Those are people who are impacting the entire civil rights movement, not just something local. So that's a perfect example of the kind of work that we do.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So I'm assuming it was a sellout, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've done really, really well with it. Our star who plays Sam Cooke is Leon Thomas III, who was on Nickelodeon's show Victoria. So he especially had a really big draw. And yeah, it's been a very, very well-loved play, and we're hoping that it will potentially transfer to New York City.
Yeah, and possibly even a film at some point. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
When you bring it back, let me know, because I definitely want to see it.
Yeah, I will definitely let you know.
So you talked a little bit about like distinguishing between just art and great art. How do you do that?
So seeking out artists that are really doing work kind of like I described, that is very relevant and that has a purpose to it. But also, you know, in a way there is a system of credentials, right? So like our singer was a Grammy Award winner. You know, so really seeking out artists that are simply at the top of their game and are already being recognized as doing work that is really top quality. Another example of something that we're doing this season is we've commissioned Billy Corbin, very well known for many documentaries, but one of his first was Cocaine Cowboys, which detailed, it's a trilogy that details, you know, the 1980s in Miami, and it's hiring somebody like him and another playwright to work with him named Orrin Squire, also a Miamian, who's been doing a lot of screenwriting in LA most recently, putting them together to do a new work on stage that talks about some of the issues that we dealt with in our past in the 80s, but are also still relevant today. Issues of gun violence, issues of, you know, victims of gun violence, and, you know, not glorifying the drug scene, but also like grappling with those demons of, you know, what does it mean to be in a city that has grown over the past 30, 40 years, largely on a base of that was drug money in the 80s.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, that kind of the history of Miami and some of the things that you're talking about. What can, I would say like Miami's kind of at the forefront of a lot of issues and a lot of like social innovation and change. What can like the rest of the United States learn from Miami, from their history and what they've been through?
I think one of the things that we talk about a lot at Miami New Drama has to do with the nature of a multicultural city changing, and in many ways Miami continues to be segregated, but that's constantly changing, right? So like we always have new waves, new influxes of people coming in, and it's been a majority minority city for a long time already. I think it's, you know, it's over 50% of Miamians were not born here. And so I think that the country is all moving in that direction, right? Where there's more and more different groups of people that are coming in, and minorities are going to surpass what was historically the majority for a long time in the United States. And so I think that there's a lot to learn about how these different groups can work together to help each other. I think Miami sometimes has pushed itself into silos, and more recently we've been working harder at breaking down those silos and working together. And I think that's somewhere where we can lead as an example of, you know, this is how we can all live together and work together when we have different goals and different backgrounds, and how can we learn to, you know, talk to each other and move forward.
Yeah. So what was it that got you inspired to be involved in theater to begin with?
So I've been involved in different forms of the art world for my entire career. I actually studied religion in college, and people are always like, how did this happen? You know? Mm-hmm. And I always sort of explain that studying religion is really a way of studying humanity, right? So like it's a way of studying history, literature, art. You know, whenever you want to learn about a culture, the best examples architecturally, you know, artistically, are always usually their religious temples. And so I think it comes from, you know, having a love of people and understanding of people. So then jumping into the art world, and how does that move business, and kind of understanding the value of business, but wanting that to always speak to a certain side of humanity, not just like how do I make food? How do I make money to buy food? Right? Like there's another side of us that always needs to be fed. And so how did I actually get into the theater world? I would say largely because theater is really the biggest art form that was somewhat neglected for a long time in Miami. In 2006, the Coconut Grove Playhouse, which was our anchor theater, closed. At that time, the Arts Center didn't even exist. So it closed. The Arts Center kind of took over. The art world really grew a lot in the period since then. And so theater got kind of overshadowed. New World Symphony grew exponentially. Miami City Ballet grew exponentially. So we built these cultural institutions. The PAM, of course, is now 10 years old. But theater kind of lost its meaning, a big footprint in Miami. And so I recognized that, and I teamed up with Michelle Hausman, who's the founder of Miami New Drama and is the artistic director, founded the company, but I was already working to rebuild the Coconut Grove Playhouse, and that's how we met. And we kind of saw this, we had this joint vision of, hey, theater is the one powerful art form that is missing from Miami. And ironically, in many ways, theater is the most basic, right? Because it's just storytelling, or, at its base, it's storytelling. And that's the first thing we do, right? Like when we start talking, we start telling stories. So in a way, it's more primitive or basic than music or painting, and so we had that shared vision. And so he's the artistic vision and I'm the business side of it. I'm the enabler of artists, and I love that role. It's sometimes it's very freeing to not have to be the creative mind all the time, to be the logistics and make the trains run on time, as Michelle says. There are challenges around it because a lot of it has to do with fundraising, whether that be negotiating with government entities or private foundations or even individuals, or simply ticket sales. So, I'm responsible for making sure that all the bills get paid and the funding is there to make that happen. But I really enjoy it a lot. It's very rewarding.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when the two of you came together and you had this vision for something, were there challenges in getting people behind that vision or communicating that vision so that people could get on board with you?
So Michelle was lucky in that he arrived at a time where, there was a vacuum, right? And so he first rented the Colony Theater. It was a very underutilized rental venue. And he rented the Colony Theater and presented his musical that he had written, which is called The Golem of Havana. Sold out shows, very popular. It's a beautiful musical. It speaks to the Jewish community, the Cuban community. Really any kind of exile or refugee community, because it deals with a lot of that process and the issues around, being a political and or religious refugee. So many of us in Miami can identify with that. And he was able to so immediately show that there was a need for this, that the city of Miami Beach was open to negotiating with him to give him the theater. And so once he had that as a platform, it became easy to, okay, here's step one. Now we have a home, now we have a place to do our work. And then it's been now 2 years, and this year is our first full Miami New Drama season. And so we've been ramping up for this moment for 2 years. And now we're at the point where, people are starting to know who we are, and people are starting to, hear our message. And so it's getting easier for people to support us. Luckily, we've had great support from the Knight Foundation, Knight Arts Challenge winners 2 years in a row, and now have an ongoing commitment from them. We were able to renegotiate our agreement with the city of Miami Beach so that they will support us for at least 5 years and at a much higher value than they had initially been open to, once they saw that we were able to do work that really is important, is nationally relevant, and that people are talking about, not just here, but also outside of Miami.
So it sounds like we have a lot to look forward to in the next coming years.
Absolutely. Miami New Drama is only going to get bigger and better.
So what are you most excited about that's coming up?
Currently, we have this play, Fake. It's written by a local playwright named Carmen Peláez, and it speaks to the art world, specifically a Cuban painting in this case. And it's a story very relevant to Miami, and here is a female local playwright whose work we're producing. So that's very exciting. Then we have Billy Corbin and Oren Squire, Confessions of a Cocaine Cowboy, which I think will be a huge hit in Miami. Everybody's excited about it. You never know what you're going to get from Billy. You know, he loves to pose challenging questions, and because of that, we're of course very aligned with him, and so we're excited to see what conversations get sparked from that. And then looking forward, we're already working on a project about the Elian Gonzalez story, which is something that was very, very influential in Miami. I can tell you that, you know, I have Cuban parents, and that moment made them go from voting generally for the Democratic Party to voting for the Republican Party. I tell people all the time that George Bush became president because of a little boy named Elian Gonzalez, and people are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yep, because if you look at the statistics, you know, George W. Bush lost Miami-Dade County, a county that had voted for Clinton previously in the previous 2 elections. And so you see truly the power of how one human can affect the course of history. There are a lot of issues surrounding that case that Miami has never talked about. It's kind of like the Cassius Clay story. So It's like there was this big moment in Miami that happened, and then nobody talked about it ever again. Yet the ramifications were epic. Yeah. And so we believe that about the Elian Gonzalez story. And so we're working on a play about it with 3 local playwrights, Vanessa Garcia, Carmen Peláez again, and Juan C. Sanchez. So that's something that I believe will be in the 1920 season. 2019-2020 season. Yeah. So excited about that, particularly because I saw firsthand how it affected my family and people's perspectives on you know, government, where, you know, what should happen to children. As a mom, I see what happened to a woman who was willing to give her life for her child for, you know, survival. And so it's a story that touches me very closely in that way. So I'm excited to see what we do with it.
Wow. So you mentioned that we're working on that you're working on that. So at what point do the plays get to Miami New Drama? Are they kind of like, do you ideate these along with and then select writers and make them happen from the ground up? Or do you kind of just select what's already out there?
So with the case of One Night in Miami, for example, that was a play that Kemp Powers wrote in 2013. And when Michelle heard about it, he knew, like, this is a play that needs to be produced in Miami. And so we went to the playwright and the licensor, which in this case is Abco Music, and, you know, fought hard to get the rights to do it, and actually convinced them to be our partner on it, not just give us the rights to it, which made it even more exciting. For many other plays, such as Cocaine Cowboys, or last season we had a play called Queen of Basel, and the Elian Gonzalez story that I was just referencing, those are plays that really Michelle Hausman has come up with the idea, and he has taken the next steps to commission the playwright or playwrights and say, like, hey, here's this idea, why don't we do that? Cocaine Cowboys, slightly different. It was more of a partnership between Michelle and Billy. When Billy first was working on the documentaries, he got hours and hours of depositions from Rivi Ayala, who was the hitman or one of the hitmen. I mean, this man is in jail for life, and his stories are really larger than life. And when Billy saw all these depositions, he was kind of mind blown. And he has a theater background. He went to New World School of the Arts and was a theater major there. And he thought, he always kind of had it in the back of his mind, like, oh, this is such an amazing character. This character on stage would be so powerful. And, you know, more, I don't know, I would say maybe 20 years later, he and Michelle were having drinks on Lincoln Road. His office is literally down the block from ours. And they were like, hey, let's just do this thing. And they pitched it to the Knight Foundation, and Knight Foundation said, you know, we'll get behind this, because they truly believe in Newark and local Miami stories. And so that's how Cocaine Cowboys happened. So every story is a little bit different, but a lot of it is driven by Michelle Hausman's artistic vision of, you know, finding a story and saying, hey, we need to put this on the stage.
Wow. And then you have to figure out how to get the money. Is that
Yes.
is that the short story?
And then I'm just the logistics behind it, you know. A lot of what I do in this role, which is maybe different from a traditional executive director, is because I'm such a local and I am so passionate about this city, is that I make sure that all the right players are involved. So for One Night in Miami, I thought it was essential that we partner with the Hampton House. They're in an area known as Brownsville. It's one of the areas of Miami that was really decimated by having, literally across the street it now has the Metro Rail, and on the side of it a highway. So here was this place where the most important singers would come to perform, and it was a really beautiful spot. And then with the urban progress, as some like to call it, was an area that was just really destroyed. And so a few years ago, there was a local woman named Dr. Enid Pinkney who fought really hard to have it restored. And so a large part of the building has been restored, but half of it is still vacant because they don't have enough money to truly make it a cultural center, which is what their vision is. And so to me, it was too important that, this is where the play actually happened. We're going to not only make sure that we get as many people there, but we're going to do more. And so we had a really exciting kickoff party there to launch the sales and announcement of our play. And then when the play ended, we set up our entire set in their exhibition space. So we basically created an exhibition about our play and about the story there, again, to draw people there and to draw attention there. We made sure that their entire community was welcome to come to our theater. Like, it really needed to be an exchange of conversations and relationships, and that's the sort of stuff that, as a local, I insert in the beyond the productions of these plays that I make sure happens. With Fake, again, it's about the art world, so it can't just be we're doing this play on Miami Beach. It has to be, where are the other communities that need to hear this story, and how do we get them to us? And sometimes a large part of how to get them to us is to make sure we're going to them. So that's a lot of what I do that is not necessarily the traditional role of the executive director.
That's cool. It sounds like you have a pretty amazing marketing mind, which the best marketers are the ones that build community. So that's what you're doing. I wanted to get to this religion thing. Are you a fan of Joseph Campbell?
No.
No? Okay. Because I figured that in most circles, like religious circles, did you study him at all or no?
Maybe, but I'm not remembering right now.
Write it down. I think you might be a fan of his because of the way that he interweaves archetypes with mythology and the stories of past.
Okay.
And religions and things like that to kind of determine the human story, if you will.
Okay.
But we can't talk about it since.
Sorry.
So tell me what is tell me how people can become a member, season tickets, all this good stuff.
Yeah, so we always sell subscriptions to our annual season, and even once a play has already opened, there's always then a modified season that extends. So miaminewdrama.org or colony.org, both places have information about us. Of course, Facebook, Instagram. We're also famous for our marquees, and so you can always see those on Instagram. We're constantly changing those, and we try to be provocative, and we've actually been on the front page of Reddit for it.
Wow.
Once last year, right after one of the shootings, it was actually right after Parkland. No, it wasn't after Parkland. I can't remember which one, but unfortunately, because there have been so many. But it said thoughts and prayers are useless to dead children, and somebody posted it, and it was on the front page of Reddit for 3 days.
Wow.
But we make a lot of comments like that. We really take our platform seriously, right? So that's a fun thing to follow even when we're not doing a play. What are we talking about? And yeah, that's how to get in touch with us.
And how can people get in touch with you? Are you on social, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that?
So Olga Granda, also Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Shoot me a message.
All of the above.
All of the above, yeah.
Well, Olga, thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure learning about everything that you all are doing, and I hope to check out a play sometime soon.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're in Miami, visit us on Thursday nights. Details are at venturecafemiami.org. And be sure to connect with us on social at We Are Slam and at Venture Cafe MIA. Thanks for listening.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams